Hey everybody, it's Comic Industry Insiders Live. It's been a couple weeks since I've been able to say that, and apparently I've forgotten how. My name is Adam Freeman, as it says right down there. I work with Prana Direct Market Solutions, along with many of our clients. And we do a weekly podcast where we talk to comic book industry insiders, and a live show where we talk about the week's news and happenings behind the scenes, all of the things that are change how the comics industry works that you don't necessarily see. And I have a partner in this, and we have a rare overlap. We're both on Friends and Neighbors, Mr. Brian Garside. Brian, somebody put him on the screen. There we go.
Me,
buddy.
Me, folks. Hey, how's it going?
We're doing all right, man. How are you?
Just making some sausage back here, just making the sausage. It's the freshest sausage we've ever had on this show, folks. This sausage.
We talk about a lot about the inside, the behind the scenes, the things that affect the comic book industry that you don't see if you just say work in a comic shop or even work for a publisher, or just are a big fan of comics. So we do this on a weekly basis, and a lot of times we're looking at the same information you are looking at, right? We're looking at the headlines. We're all following the really incredible coverage that I think, yes, Heidi McDonald and her friends at The Beat, absolutely ICB2, but can we just take for a minute and talk about Rich Johnson is killing on the coverage for especially this Diamond thing. He's doing an amazing job. Well done, Rich, friend of the show.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like the amount of kind of just breaking down of the stuff, and I mean, everybody's had to do it, but to see it all in a unified timeline, and we'll take a look at that timeline at some point. Especially, I think when we get to the river portion of this, I think we're just going to go right to the timeline because that's where it gets really finicky.
I do a weekly newsletter. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point because Brian always surprises me by making me do an ad for it. But I do a weekly newsletter where I broke down the metaphor of it, essentially calling out to our friends in distribution saying, hey, it's time for you to tell us what's happening. We know their plans. It's time for us to do it. And I'm going to tell you, I did actually get some tea this week that we're going to share later in the show. Some things where we finally have a view of what's coming this year and how the shifts in distribution are how those lines are going to start being drawn. But this is what's called a tease. So I'm telling you, stick around till we get to the river of our little poker metaphor that's coming, because we're gonna talk about some details that we haven't yet discussed in public.
That's so good. Okay. Well, I'm currently uploading the slide deck, so if you just vamp for another 30 seconds, we will have.
If you are in the audience, and there are quite a few of you, yes, he's literally pressing the apples for the apple juice. You should see him. It's like he puts on one of those little skimpy outfits and he bounces up and down the apples. What was the name of that? Anyway, I'm belaboring that one.
This is going real bad. I don't like.
If you're in the room, we want to hear from you. Like we've heard from Marco and Tommy so far. Yes, it's coming, Marco. Stick around. We would love to hear from you. If you are a comics fan, please let us know. If you're a retailer, if you're a publisher, if you're a distributor, if you're a journalist, hopefully, I know that there are a couple of those going to be in the room this week. We would love to hear from you in the comments and just, give us a heads up on how we're doing. And if you have any questions along the way, because we will do our best to reach out to them. Hey, Joe, how are you? Thanks for joining.
For folks, I understand this statement, Tommy. His rush to be first often leads to incorrect information. It's true, and he doesn't always do a great job of coming clean with that stuff. But at the same time, that guy has done a lot of stuff in terms of sheer organization. If you can look over the bluster and just look at how he organizes thoughts and things, He's doing a better job of that right now than most other folks are, and frankly, he's going places nobody else will right now. Some of this stuff is a little hinky, and I think we should throw up our disclaimer. We're just two schmoes who don't actually know anything, and we're getting this from public sources. Honestly, if there's bad information out here, some of that is actually the responsibility of the buyers to solve. The number one thing in crisis management is communication, and there has been literally no communication. I say this as a retailer who has heard not a damn word from Diamond. And I say this as, an industry insider who is working with retailers all the time and distributors. Nothing. So yeah, if you want to make all this stuff a little more clear, just tell us stuff. Let us know what's going on.
And I will tell you, Rich, I mean, he does the work. He reaches out. He does do his best to corroborate. He will be the first to say that he's not a journalist. He's a reporter. And this is a very British thing that he says. I don't entirely understand his distinction. But it has something to do with how, especially in England, how journalists keep themselves to standards. But I will say that he does. There's a whole lot that he knows that he doesn't report. And he has done the work, right? Yep. I mean, you look at any of those timelines, you look at a lot of that stuff, that does not come without hours and hours of work. And he has done it. So more props to Rich.
There's a lot of people that are saying, he's using AI for this stuff. As somebody who uses AI very, very intensively, and specifically who uses AI to help us like gather stories for this, I have firsthand experience that if you were to create this stuff with AI, 90% of it would be absolute lies and nonsense. And there's too many things that actually line up with real world that this is not generated by AI. If it was, there would be stuff in here that was, I know because I ran this through an AI generator to create a simplified list. And it was coming up with things like, this all started in 2022. It's like, where'd you get that from? So yeah, this has been at least, vetted, and he may use some AI stuff like Grammarly to fix his grammar because his grammar's gotten way better than it used to be, and spelling. But that is not true AI. That's just fixing your writing. Like that, everybody uses that stuff now. And if you're not using Grammarly, you need to be.
100%. And I want to actually shout out to what Spike is saying here. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of really big things happening behind the scenes. Yeah, Brian here is building some stuff that's going on. We're going to talk about some of it, but like our friends at Sweet, Kenny's doing amazing stuff. Our friends at CSN, they're doing amazing stuff. A lot of people are filling in those gaps, and I think one of the things that has me the most excited about this post Diamond world is what opportunities are there for those of us who are really independently minded that get pulled into comics because we're independently minded. This is not comics industry is as much as it is ruled by Disney and Warner Brothers is not run by big corporations. It's run by independent mom and pops. There really is. Big industry news is Django went on vacation. I know. I went on vacation last week, and now he's gone. I'm not saying he's.
I'm going next week.
Look at that. We'll overlap eventually. Yeah. We'll all get ourselves rested and ready to go, man. July will be killer. Anyway, all of this to say, I think we have a huge opportunity for many of us in the comics industry to remake it into something even stronger and more resilient. No longer will it be a single point of failure for the entire industry. No longer will one person, whether they should or not, no longer will one person be able to say comics will not be distributed anymore because of anything, right? Even including a pandemic that absolutely, personally, I think it was a good idea to shut things down for a little bit, but it won't be possible anymore because there's just too much overlapping now. And I think it's a really great thing. I think that's we're in a much stronger place as a result.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that at the end because I'd love to push back on some of your friend Brian Hibbs's comments about, DC started all this because, I have some insight into some of that stuff that I think would change people's opinions. So But yeah, let's jump
in, man. We have a full deck. Let's get it. And we've already been here 5 minutes.
Use the pun. People, you'll understand soon. So we're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about the Diamond timeline. We're going to talk about what's going on right now and what of Universal, Lunar, PRH, and everybody else. Let's get started with
if you are interested in this kind of news, as I said, you should be following our podcast, Comic Industry Insiders, and Brian through Managed Comics does some really amazing content as well. But if you want to follow those things, I recommend you go over to pranadm.com right now and hit that newsletter button. Go ahead and sign up. It says monthly on this slide. We started doing it weekly a few weeks back. I did actually skip last week, and I didn't tell anybody. I was on vacation. I was on Fire Island, and I was doing my best to relax. Anyway, whatever. So all of that to say, you should go ahead and sign up, and we will get you into the very next one. It's a very short email every week that runs down the big industry news. It gives you some insight into what those of us behind the scenes are doing and thinking. And, essentially, it's just a great way we've designed a great way for you to keep track of the big stories without having to follow on a day-to-day basis like Brian and I do, because we're nerds with no lives who eventually get to take a vacation. Suck it, Kyle. All right. That's any ad that ends with "suck it, Kyle" is always a good one. Anyway, pranadm.com. Check it out.
Too good.
Awesome. So let's jump in, buddy.
Yeah. I'm trying to find no, that's not the one. There's the one.
That's it.
One of these days I'll figure out how to use the thing. Let's talk about Neon Ichiban. So David Steinberger and Chip Mosier launched a new digital comics platform. They're the former Comixology execs. Chip, I think, was like VP of marketing, and David was CEO. I know little birdies have told me that they both have massive regrets about what happened to their baby, and that they don't like what their baby became. So yeah, they're going to try it again. And if you've watched what they've been doing with Distillery, they've got some really cool things that are like pseudo NFT, just this edge of NFTs, but not. So they have digital remarks, and you can have digital signatures and things like that. And then you have two options. You can either download the thing, so you get perpetual rights to download a PDF that you get forever, or you have resale rights. Any resales, the creators get a percentage of those resales going forward. I think it's lovely. It's like, it's the promise of NFTs with kind of the, elegance of digital comics. And I'm a physical comics seller. I'm not going to lie. I read digital comics.
Yeah, you don't have to be ashamed. However you're reading comics, it's not as though you don't do enough for comics, Brian. You've earned the ability to read digital.
There's comics. Just sometimes you can't look through 7,000 long boxes, and you can just pull up New Teen Titans number 38. Not that I have recently. Maybe you. What
I love about this is we know that David and Chip are both very well capable of pulling this off. They understand the tech side. They understand the industry side. They understand what it's going to take. Unlike a lot of times we'll see tech companies come into this space and say, we're going to disrupt, we're going to fix comics. And they have no idea why things work the way they work. So how do they expect to fix it? It's like saying they're going to fix my plumbing without understanding how hot and cold water works. Yeah. However, Chip and David both understand where that water comes from, and they know how all of those systems work. So I'm really heartened that they're getting into this. I know that when they announced Distillery, my tweet about it was that, someday somebody's going to crack digital collectibles and comics, and these guys are on the short list of anybody who could pull it off. Yeah, so sure. I think if they're going to be able to do that, I think they really are going to make it work. If anybody could make it work, it's going to be them. Plus, they did it already once before. So hopefully they can do it in a way that doesn't allow Jeff Bezos to kill digital comics again.
They really did. They really did.
Yes.
I have a solution for this as well, Kyle. I highly recommend DC's Compact Collection. They are so amazing. They're just this week, Superman Birthright came out. Last week, it was Batwoman. They're such a great form factor. They're $10. So if you end up getting it wet, you're not going to cry. Get your iPad wet, you'll probably be a little bit sad. Just saying.
Well, I have one of those iPads. It's waterproof, but at the same time, like with all the different digital formats and apps we have, including Hoopla and different library services and the publisher direct digital platforms, digital is a nice opportunity to have. And I love the idea of the Neon Ichiban because it lets that digital world become more like our traditional comic book world. So
Sure.
I think it's a good way to bridge that gap between us old heads and the new modern children that understand this stuff while we try and figure it out.
100%. Yes. Awesome.
I gotta say, there's no bigger Luddites when it comes to comics than my kids. Like they refuse to read digitally; they will only read physical. And I'm like, guys, okay, all right, fine.
No,
I'm always shocked by it.
Yep. All right.
Our friends at Ignition Press, Philip Sablik, Jeremy Shore. There's a whole gang of them over there. They have signed with Penguin Random House. I don't know if we mentioned this on our last show. I think Django and I mentioned it last week. So they've landed a global distribution deal with Penguin Random House. They are planning a major debut at San Diego Comic-Con. I have some inside information that I can't share this week, but I will soon. Cool. Let's just say that I know that they are planning a web presence, a shop, everything. So yeah, they're it's really exciting. And they've closed their first Kickstarter for Murder Podcast, the cold open. And it was successfully funded. And that one I think comes out, I want to say it comes out in like either July or August, but it's a fairly short run on when it'll be available.
I think the world of them, but the whole team is really fantastic. Two of them have already been on the podcast, and Philip was even on our first live broadcast. So yeah, friend of the show. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. IDW, in a rare moment of calm, told us that they can still survive. So good example of a company that is doing the work to let people know that they're not struggling right now. Because there was a lot of worry about a year ago that IDW was in a lot of trouble. And they had, investor information out there that was saying that they were struggling. Probably not coincidentally that they moved to Penguin Random House and some of their fortunes reversed. It's also been like the year of turtles. Oh my God, I'm selling more turtles than I think I've ever seen sold in my life. So yeah, they're doing really, really well. Their Star Trek stuff does really well too. It's like, it's not a stellar seller, but we're selling 10 to 12 of every single Star Trek book that they sell. And that's like 10% of my total audience. So not bad numbers. I'm actually really impressed with them. And I think that if they would have stuck with Diamond, it would probably be a very, very different story right now, just based on other publishers who are struggling with, lack of payments and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And IDW, I think that their distinguishing characteristic is that they are publicly traded, so all of their dirty underwear is available to see at all times. A lot of the stuff that they get heat for, a lot of companies deal with, but it is good to see them essentially say, look, they're going to be around for a minute. We have decent people. We're going to keep it going. So yeah, excellent.
Yeah, this is totally true. Sold more dollars in turtles in the last month than the previous 6. Yeah. Turtles are doing really well, really well. Marvel 616 Day. Did you hear about this thing?
I haven't. You showed this, put this up on the slide, and I realized I should probably do a little background. So why don't you tell us about it?
So Monday was 616 Day because it was June 16th. I guess it was a week ago. Monday was, and so when I got my books a couple of weeks ago, they had a packet that said do not open until January or June 16th. And I think I got them on a Saturday that I had opened up the box. And so of course I immediately opened it. And inside of it was like a 4-pack of variants. They're 616 exclusive variants. So there was a Fantastic Four, There was a Avengers, I want to say, a Spider-Man, and something else. There were covers that you only saw there, and then there was a 10-pack of pins, like really nice embossed pins, and it was celebrating 616 Day, which I've never heard of. And other than this little thing, I don't know that it was a thing. So anyway, these things are selling for about $120 for the pack online. If you want to sell one on eBay,
nice.
Feel free. Yeah, I'm going to give mine away as part of a ratios giveaway thing that we're going to do later this month. But yeah, it's a thing, and
all right,
free, and it's free money.
Another day, I like it. 616 Day.
So awesome. Maybe next year there'll be some marketing around it.
Listen, sometimes you have the right idea, you just have it too late, and so you can rush it out, and then hopefully you get it better the next time.
Monday's June 16th. Wait until 616 Day falls on a Wednesday, and then oh my gosh, it's going to be the best day ever.
It's on. It is on. Yep.
Okay, and I brought this one up because I don't understand it, and I know you do. So I really wanted to hear from you what exactly this means. So Diamond ended their no-cost return service, and distributors were really, really up in arms over this, publishers, and I really didn't understand what it meant.
Okay, so the NCR, honestly, I didn't even realize what NCR stood for until this came up. So, but essentially what it is you ship your product to Diamond as a publisher. They are holding it for you. They're selling it. They are, fulfilling reorders. They're handling you sell them. You send them more product than you need in order to cover the orders because they may have overages or damages or whatever shortages, and so they're going to have to send. You always send extra. Then you will send, if you overprint, sometimes you'll send that knowing that you're going to have conventions, especially like trade paperbacks, where the sales tail is going to be, years long. You are going to be sending them that product so that they're holding it. Megan points out one of the best parts about being a consignment vendor. So what that means is now you have this product at Diamond. So let's say you're going to go to San Diego Comic-Con, right? And you need to ship a bunch of products. So you as a publisher would then basically fill out an order form saying, I need, 20 of these, 200 of these, 15 of these, and so on. I'm going to ship to this address, meaning the convention. And Diamond will ship that for you. You pay the shipping. You don't pay fees because you are a consignment account for them. Those fees are the real thing, the killer, because you would normally pay, if you were working with some sort of fulfillment house, you would pay either per SKU or per item or per shipment or fee for them pulling that product, packaging it, and shipping it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was one of those services that they had for publishers that allowed you to essentially made it more likely that you wanted to be exclusive with them, because if all your product is there and you can just ship it out, you're not going to go looking for anybody else.
Right.
Them ending the NCRs means that now all of this product that was sitting in the Olive Branch warehouse that is waiting for these publishers to either move or for Diamond to stop doing what is going to, who knows what's happening there. We'll get into some of that later. All of that inventory is now stuck. They cannot remove, they couldn't even ship it to themselves without paying Diamond a fee for packaging it up. So now not only are they not getting paid, right, for all those payments out there, I think that the guy there is quoted in one of the lawsuits as saying he's playing chicken with stupid people or something like that, right? So not only they're playing chicken with somebody who thinks of them as idiots. That's what it was, playing chicken with idiots. Not only that, but he's now saying, now you have to pay me in order to get your product back. So not only am I not paying you, but you can't get your product back without paying me. So it's real. It's not good. It does not look like somebody who's trying to, create goodwill with vendors. So, the truth of the matter is that I think we're going to, or I don't think we're going to get into Dynamite, but basically everybody but Dynamite is so small that they don't really have a lot of leverage. And I think he's really counting on that being the case, is that anybody who doesn't have any leverage with them is just going to suck it up, or probably even just not even bother. They're probably just abandon the inventory.
Yeah.
So it's not good. It's hardball. It's for sure.
Well, on that, that's awesome. Let's go into the fun stuff then. Let's go to the Diamond timeline and see how we got to where we are today.
Real fast.
Yeah.
Sure.
There is a small publisher I know who is currently working out the logistics of driving from New York to Missouri to Olive Branch to pick up all of their product and then find a freighter to send it back.
Yeah.
Like, it'll kill their company, but at least they'll have their product.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. It's in Olive Branch is in Mississippi, though. It's not in Missouri. So if they drive to Missouri, they're going to have a problem. So
whatever. I'd never liked
Mississippi.
Olive Branch.
Mississippi's only like 6 hours away, isn't it? From New York.
All right. Anyway, moving on. So
timelines. Let's talk timelines. First of all, kudos to Bleeding Cool. Rich Johnson did a great job there. We'll drop this into the chat. I think there is a great link here, and it's a really good kind of thorough timeline of everything that happened. But let's jump right in. So before we talk about this, in your last article, your last bullet, you did a really great analogy of poker. And so in poker, there's a shuffle that happens beforehand. Everybody gets their cards, right? So you see your original cards. Then there's something called the flop, which is when the communal hand is shown. The first 3 cards, the communal hand. And
everybody gets 2 cards. You look at your 2 cards. Yep. There's a flop of 3 cards, meaning a communal 3 cards everybody has to play with. And then there's another turn, right? Another card turns over, called the turn. And then there's the river, which is the last card. So there's 5 cards being dealt up, 2 cards in your hand. You have to make a 5-card poker hand with that.
Yep. And at the end of all that, you decide, well, there's multiple opportunities for you to jump out.
Yeah.
Because as people start bidding and things go up, you can jump out at any point. But then at the end of all that, you got 2 choices. You can either show your hand or you can fold. You can say, nope, I don't want you to see because you're going to know too much about how I play poker if I show you my hands right now.
Yeah.
Or I can say, yeah, sure, here's what I had. And we'll find out whether or not you were lying the whole time. We're going to go through this using the same analogy because I loved it. It's so good.
Thank you.
So the very beginning was just the setup. Just, here's all the pieces. So way back in July, we found out through court filings that Diamond had hired a company to provide restructuring services, and they hired Robert Gorin as the chief restructuring officer. Now, there's various stories out there about how far back Diamond's woes go. And some of those go back pre-COVID. Some of them I've heard as early as like 2019, 2018, there were issues. COVID certainly didn't help the situation. And then post-COVID, when they lost 70% of the market share, like virtually overnight, 30% in the beginning, and then another 40% with Marvel. And then on top of that, you lose Dark Horse and IDW and like all your other kind of supporting ones that were carrying the load throughout that. And they still had non-exclusive deals with everything other than DC. And a lot of retailers were still ordering stuff through Diamond just because it was easier. I know my former partner, Pete, who ran All New Comics for 20 years, was ordering the vast majority of stuff through Diamond because it was just easier to get it all from one person. Even though he wasn't getting as good a discount as he would be, he wasn't getting free shipping, all that stuff. It was just way easier for him to order stuff through one person. Made sense. So that's kind of where we were. There was rumors that things were in trouble. So back in July, unbeknownst to anybody, they were doing this restructuring work. In September, they hired an investment banker, Raymond James, to find potential partners interested in purchasing the company's assets. Adam and I know of a couple of those companies who have told us privately that they had made offers back quite a while ago, which means they got to see all the books. They got to see everything. It was a very open process. They had to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Vetted. They had to be vetted, which meant they had to have the ability and the assets. So the ability part was always interesting to me because I thought it was just a money thing. You throw money, boom, you get this company. The ability part was the part that I never really considered, that they were looking for companies that could actually, like, that understood the business and that could carry it on as a going concern once this transaction was so they were planning on kind of a long-term deal here. So yeah, apparently
it should be noted this is actually very common. In fact, I'm going to while we're talking, I'm going to pull up an episode that we did on the podcast with Kuyu Lang, who's a mergers and acquisitions M&A expert. And he went through that process and essentially talked about how, as a seller, you really, part of what you're looking for is the right buyer who not only can afford it and pay you what you want, but also like increase the value of the thing that you're selling them. So sure. It is a really wonderful conversation. I'm going to go ahead and post in the links.
Yeah. Heidi says here, Heidi McDonald of The Beat says it doesn't include coverage from ICV2, graphic policy, or The Beat. Yeah. And
we did shout out to you earlier, Heidi, but we should also mention Brent over at Graphic Policy. Did incredible reporting on this. Thank you, man. Keep it up.
Yeah, we've been pretty deep in this stuff for the last few weeks. So yeah, we've read it all. And I totally agree. And actually, I kind of like the fact that it's just from him, because it means that he's not doing the thing that he's always accused of, which is stealing other people's material. So here we are. At least this is just Rich's stuff. But yeah, exactly. I'll be honest, Heidi, it was the easiest and most succinct real timeline that we've seen so far. And if we could amalgamate them all, and trust me, I tried. This is where my problems with AI came this weekend.
Feel free to steal all
literally 12 hours.
Ask ChatGPT to reword it, and you can put it up.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to make a big timeline by like sucking all the different things in, and it was hallucinating things back to like 2022 that just didn't happen. So, you're right, Heidi. It's one person's sources right now.
So I can jump in here. October evaluation materials made available to bidders. This is like I said, we know from the conversation, is a very common practice. They will put all of the pieces that you would need in order to ask those questions in something like a Dropbox or a box link that's password protected, and you would have to qualify in order to even see it. Right. And they start identifying who those bidders are in this particular instance. Then in December, Wizards of the Coast terminates its distribution agreement with Diamond. There's a whole lot of conversation about this. They had a distribution agreement. So part of the value of the company was that agreement with Wizards of the Coast.
It's super interesting from a retailer perspective. If you think about the last time that you got a Wizards of the Coast order from Diamond, it's around December of last year.
There you go.
I've not seen anything in ages. And people are saying to me, oh yeah, we haven't gotten anything from Wizards of the Coast for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Bing, bing, bing. Okay. So then on January 13th, Diamond executed an asset purchase agreement with Universal as a stalking horse bid for the bankruptcy process. So they had an agreement with Universal to be the kind of the floor of the bid. So they knew at the least they're going to get is this.
And this is also when it becomes public, right? This actually is when we all hear about it. And the time January that we did our second live broadcast was, maybe we should be on to talk about this.
Yeah, January
in the 14th. Metaphor of the poker hand, the draw. This is everybody's pulling up now their assets. The people that are involved in the game now have their cards, and so that again, where this metaphor is jumping in.
Everybody's got their little 2-hole cards, and I'm sitting here once again with a 7-2 offsuit every goddamn time. Now the question is, do I play anyway just to see what you've got, or do I fold? And January 14th, the official bankruptcy petition was filed. We came on live and did our holy crap. What the heck? Adam and I had been talking about doing a show like this for a while. And then this was just like, I think we got to talk, man.
I think it's time.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that, I'm not glad that this happened, but I'm glad that we were able to start this. It's been a good process for everybody. So bankruptcy court entered the bid procedures order authorizing an auction of the Diamond Comics assets to the highest bidder. The highest bidder is an interesting phrase here because it does change things. I know we've covered this a lot, so So moving on to the flop. In the metaphor of the poker game, this is when the 3 cards are turned over. Everybody sees the bulk of what their hand is going to look like. They have the 2 cards in their hand. They have the 3 cards there. To make a hand. So now essentially, are you in this game or are you not?
Correct.
Sparkle Pop submits a joint bid proposal with Universal. Alliance Entertainment makes a bid for $51 million. And sends in a deposit of 3.6. This, of course, keeps everything moving. And then there's an actual live auction, which Heidi in the room sat in that waiting room. Good on you. She said, "Are you going?" And I said, "I don't know. I got too much work to do. I'm going. You should go." Anyway, so then there is a live auction. Entertainment Alliance's bid for $72 million. Is declared the winning bidder, and Sparkle Pop and Universal join up as sort of a group as a backup bidder. They're going to carve it up, however that is. It should be noted that at this point, that I think we discuss the fact that Universal was the stalking horse bidder at this point.
Yes,
we all assumed Universal was going to be the winner, and then Alliance just kind of jumped in out of nowhere and said, "Yeah, we got $72 million. Let's go." Yeah.
So on March 25th, Alliance requested opportunity to communicate directly with Diamond's customers, and Raymond James denied the request, which is super interesting to me because the one thing that we keep saying is like there's been no communication. Apparently, the bankruptcy lawyers are refusing to allow them to speak. But undeterred, our pal Bruce Ogilvie, CEO of Alliance Entertainment, goes on the Beyond Wednesdays podcast. And if you look at the court documents and everything after that, that keeps coming up again and again. That there was a lot of pushback by Raymond James on that having happened. So yeah, it's really
it was really the things that he said were unbelievable. Essentially, it felt like he was not prepared for what they bought, and obviously didn't have much interest in comics at all. But man, did they have robots!
That story was only up for about 24 hours, and then I think they had to edit it and like repost it. But I remember seeing it when it first came out, and as he's talking, I'm just like, you can't say that. Oh no, you can't say that. Oh,
say what you will about Dennis Barger, and I have said a lot of things. He did seemingly kill a $72 million deal for So the turn in the metaphor of the poker game, the turn is the 4th card that's turned up. Sometimes your hand is suddenly made. Sometimes it is not made. But you definitely get a feeling of whether or not you're going to be able to last this out, or if you're waiting on that river card that's coming. We'll talk about that in a minute. So Alliance Entertainment files an adversary complaint against Diamond Comics for preliminary injunction to stop the Universal ad populum Sparkle Pop from being reinstated as the winning bidder. So they were essentially asking to be reinstated. It's a lot. Then Alliance tries to execute the purchase agreement, which totals $85 million with 61 cash due. Man, we're playing in a different game. And then WotC, Wizards of the Coast, invites Alliance Entertainment to a conference between them and Diamond to discuss the relationship, at which point Alliance terminates their purchase because they find out that the WotC deal was not nearly as good as they thought it was.
Correct. Yeah. And that represented a significant part of the reason that Alliance was buying them, because they really wanted to get into WotC.
Yeah. There you go.
So yeah, now we've got nobody buying it. What could happen next?
What's happening?
The river we have to pull up, because I ran out of time. So we have to pull up an actual website to go through the river.
Okay, well, that's
okay.
Fair.
All right. So with the river, what happened was Universal and Ad Populum came in and made a proposal to buy Diamond jointly after Ant pulled out. That was agreed by the court, and that went through. I think it was so on the 28th of April, the bankruptcy court threatened to switch it from a Chapter 11 to Chapter 7, which would have been kind of a winding down of the business. But then on the 30th, they approved the sale of Diamond to Universal Ad Populum.
Which we should just say, was where we thought this was going all along.
Yeah.
And what we found out was that Universal got essentially the Alliance Games assets, and Ad Populum / Sparkle Pop got Diamond Comics assets. Anything with the word Diamond on it was now Ad Populum, Sparkle Pop. So now that's where we've been standing. We've been here for a while now. And we've been in this spot where we know that there's someone who owns the Diamond Comics distribution, which a lot of publishers, a very long list, are dependent on to this day, right? Their businesses are dependent on that relationship because they are small enough that they're having a hard time finding distribution outside of it. Folks like Philip Russ are trying, they're trying to build things. We've got people like Massive Indie that are also trying. I know Prana, we're trying to help a few of our clients get distribution. But the truth of the matter is, unless you have one of those kinds of companies on your side, it's really difficult to get even into a catalog, much less, whether or not you're able to market or sell. So we've been in this place of sort of kind of stasis, like what's going to happen next, and the retailers don't know. You are having diminishing FOC order every month, and even more diminishing shipment that you're getting every week.
This week there were 7 items on Diamond's FOC. 7 items. That's it.
Yeah.
And 5 of those were action figures, Adam.
So when I put out this newsletter, it was really just to say, where are we? It's time for you guys to say something. It's time for you to jump out there and tell us where we are. So as a result of that, we had a few conversations. We got a better feeling for where we are. And I think that might be the next slide.
Yeah. Just one last thing. During this whole period of the river, there were massive layoffs, right? So we can't really forget the human cost of this. There was a ton of layoffs at Diamond. And there's been a ton of people switching. Really good people have found really good positions elsewhere. Yes. It's been really, really fascinating to see the board change, especially like certain contacts I had at Diamond for certain things. I've suddenly found show up at Penguin Random House and Lunar, and and it's really reassuring, because it means that the things that we were talking about at Diamond, where their hands were hamstrung, those are not the same constraints they're going to have at PRH and Lunar, because those guys are very on board with the stuff we're doing.
And if we're getting into that, it should also be noted that that's also the cause of several of the lawsuits that that allowed us to even hear more behind the scenes. That phrase of playing chicken with idiots came out of the lawsuits that happened because of the poaching from Diamonds now to Alliance Entertainment. Who knows what their plan is? And then a few people moving over to Universal, and we're getting a better feel for that based on the people that they're bringing over. But you're right, all of that movement. But the worst is, I mean, I won't say the worst is the people who were laid off. Some really great people, some really good friends of mine personally have been laid off and are now trying to find a new home. But I would say the people at Diamond still, I talk to them and they don't know. They don't know like from one week to another what's going to be happening to them. So I feel for them as well. They still have a job, but for how long?
Yeah.
You know, it's really got to be just gut wrenching for them on an ongoing basis. So
yeah, 100%. Okay, so here's what we know of Universal Hand. We know that Universal has had a global deal with DC Comics for at least, I think it was back in 2022. It could have even been earlier.
Yeah.
So they've had that deal for ages. We know they're working on back end stuff. So they'll be able to distribute DC into the United States as early as I don't understand what that means.
As it was the early as the on sale, and this was my bad. Early as on sale in September of this year.
Okay, so cool.
That will mean we should be hearing something, I guess, from next month, right? We'll because if it's July for September, we're going to hear in July.
This catalog will be is the
as
July
early as. I don't know that's for certain. A lot of this stuff comes from people I'm talking to behind the scenes who said, you know, none of this is secret. Go ahead and share it. But I also am not going to tell you who it was because I don't want to get them to get in trouble either if they weren't. If I got that wrong. So yes, and based on what they learned there, they're going to be using this. So part of what they're doing right now is they're building the infrastructure in the Alliance warehouses, primarily the Alliance warehouse in Fort Wayne, Indiana, to ship out comic books. And they're beginning small. They're beginning with DC Comics, who they already have, second largest publisher in comics. So it's a good place to start. And honestly, this is where Lunar started, was distributing DC Comics during the pandemic. And that's why they realized they can build a distributor. Based on those results, they will be bringing in other publishers for U.S. distribution. I will tell you, those of you who are still dependent on Diamond or those who don't have any distribution at all, I would not see this as your solution for a long while. I know many of you are trying to get in touch with Universal. I would say that, you know, don't take the fact that you're not hearing from them as bad news. Just take it as it's going to be a while. And when you do get in, it would probably be better to get in with someone else. So someone like Massive Indies, if they do something like that with, I don't know what they're doing. I think they actually have an exclusive with Lunar. I'm not real sure how you would do it, but if there's someone else who's doing that, like can be that sort of hand holding. I can tell you that their focus, my understanding is their focus, they're part of the reason they want to make sure they get this right is on service and support. So that includes, my understanding is, and I'm not quoting them. Please don't quote me. This is just what I've heard. Includes phone support. Like we have not had phone support for retailers in a long time. And listen, we have an aging retailer base who likes to use the phone. We like to communicate over conversations. I just called somebody yesterday and said, I can't know what relationship we have. Do I have to text you before I call you, or can we just talk? Like, Anyway. I know that they have an incredible support staff that they have hired in. They already have a really strong distribution in Canada. So they already have people in place, but they've hired in some of the best people. I cannot make a list of staff that I would have hired out of Diamond that the people they brought over are not on. Like they really did get in some of the cream. And they're really focusing on best-in-class shipping. I put this question mark. I heard a story that PRH actually modeled their shipping to comic shops after what Universal was doing. After what Universal was doing in Canada. So you could speak to that better than I as to what they're, how well they package. But I know that that's what they're trying to build. They're trying to build this like infrastructure first before they come out, as opposed to having to build it as they go, which makes sense.
I've never heard anybody complain about Universal's shipping, which is hilarious. So find yourself an emotional support Canadian and ask them how Universal is, because almost every retail store that I know of in my immediate area uses Universal. So it was like really, really incumbent on us to make sure we supported it. And yeah, it's an important piece of the puzzle. So they've had this experience for quite a while, right? Like they're not the new kid on the block. They're not the Lunar that
They're
is going
definitely not.
from direct to consumer to direct to retailer. So yeah, you're in good hands. There we go.
And
From
also,
CrossFit
it's just
in
smart to
Montreal.
have yourself an emotional support Canadian, because I know this from having you. We really do
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, Crossover Comics in Montreal, and he says universal shipping is top notch. Rarely get a damage even on comics. Got 3D. We have a universal account for cards. They package good and friendly. Look at that.
There you go.
So,
see,
testimony.
right on.
Then the cards was we know them for Universal Hand. Then you'll notice. Oh, sorry, this should be ad populum Sand. You'll notice there's two things. We know that they still have not communicated with retailers about plants, and they continue to lose publishers. Just recently losing Zenoscope and Dynamite.
Yeah, and Zenoscope, I mean, willing to move on to even smaller distribution like Filbo, rather than to live in that space anymore. I mean, it's not good. And Dynamite, I mean, but Nikki, a huge supporter of the show. In fact, a big part of our distribution of this show goes through that, and Kyle has been such a huge asset for us on this show. I will say that I'm so glad that you finally, made that jump over. And every time we say Nikki, we also have to say what he would say if he was in the chat, which is you should be liking, subscribing, and hitting the alert button. Nikki wants me to make sure that like, subscribe, and alert. There you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that kind of puts us up to date. That's where we are right now. Last week was one of those weeks where it was just hit after hit after hit. It was Zenoscope was at the beginning of the week, which was, it's like 2 books a month that we deal with Zenoscope, maybe 4. Dynamite was a pretty big hit. There's a lot of stuff that we would lose losing Dynamite. So I'm glad to see that they're in a better place. I will say that my FOC this week, where I had to do it on Lunar with all the Dynamite variants, was literally twice as long as it's ever been before. And I didn't love that. I'm not going to lie. I know that everybody has a variety of opinions of the variants. I would love an option to just say, please don't show me any of these, because I don't care. God bless you if you do, but I don't care. And then I also heard, and this has been corroborated on a few of the retailer forums I'm on, that apparently Diamond wasn't really too picky about the 1 in 20s and 1 in 50s. And if you just said, give me a 1 in 20, they would just go through.
So all right. So that goes back to something called auditing. So because Diamond systems were not, let's just not say, let's say that their tech was not bleeding edge. It was not. It was a little in the past. So because of that, anytime you put in an incentive, essentially it would just be orderable like any other incentive. And so you would get the orders on this. And so then the process was you could then pay Diamond to audit, because Diamond would not share those actual numbers with you. Unless, there's a whole lot of unlesses, but for the longest time, almost nobody got account data like we get now from Universal and such, but not Universal, Lunar. But anyway, all of that to say, someone had to physically go in and say, Brian ordered 2 of these 1 in 20s. So he needs to have ordered 40 or more of the A, B, C, and D covers. So they had to go in and physically add those up and then say, yes, he qualified, or no, zeroed it out. So very often what publishers would do, and I'm sure somebody at some point is going to use this again somewhere else, but very often what publishers would do is, just to juice the sales, they would put a price tag on that incentive variant. So instead of it being $2.99, it's now $19.99. And they would call it a 1 in 20 variant, but they would just sell you as many as you wanted. if you wanted to just juice your numbers for sales, to get you better ranking on that sales list, leave those variants open for order. Don't tell anybody you're not auditing, and then go ahead and ship them out. Now, the downside of this is the variance, the value is the resale value. And the resale value would just bottom out because there are certain publishers who will, retailers who will always try to order more than they qualify for, and then just sell them for nothing online. So your resale value bottoms out, and so then you don't get a chance to, you don't get a chance to use that to increase sales later. So it's
that explains all of the people that everyone hates. And I wonder if their businesses have just like evaporated overnight with this change. Because Lunar does a great job with this. I actually love the way their system works. If I go in and I want to see if I qualify for something, I can actually click on that thing and it will show me what the total sum of other copies are. And so I can see how close I am to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Net cost variant sales.
There you go. That's our Megan. She knows the tricks as well as I do. That's why she works for me.
What do you think that retailers, distributors, and fans should be thinking of right now?
Well, listen, I think right now we're in a fantastic time for comics, right?
Yeah, I agree.
The books that are coming out are really, really top notch. I would say both Marvel and DC are really cooking with gas on the editorial side. So as a fan, who cares? If you want to follow it like you follow the coach of your favorite team, and and really want to follow who gets caught up in the next draft, great. Enjoy that. Definitely tune into this show a lot and comment and like and subscribe and hit the alert button. But as a fan, just go and pick up from your books and enjoy them. That really is as simple as that.
I have a couple customers who've been really, really concerned about some of the weird stuff they order, and not weird, but I've got a couple customers that order the PS art books, right? Those they're kind of reprints of old 40s and 50s comics, and they love them. And the one guy, that's all he gets every month. And he's like, where am I going to get these now? Because they're not available from Diamond, and they're not even, because Diamond was doing the Amazon selling, so they're not even available on Amazon. And I was like, just, chill, give us a little bit of time.
Give it a beat.
But yeah, that's the thing that I'm getting from customers coming in and just saying, hey, how do I get this thing now that I know this is not being distributed by Diamond? And 9 times out of 10, I go, don't worry about it. Where it comes from isn't your concern. It's if it comes from me still.
I mean, the retailer's job is to think about this stuff, and it is legitimately how you get paid. It is your ability to think through this, and Jeremy is one of those people who I know puts a lot of thought and energy into getting this right and making the most efficient and smart decisions, both to source his customers but also for profit at his stores. And he's saying he's just simply ignoring Diamond. Right. Yep. He's telling the customers that any order from Diamond is science fiction. It's probably true. Right. It's his job to communicate that.
Yeah.
So I will say, as a retailer, gosh, I mean, we've said it so many times on this podcast, this live show. Open a Lunar account.
Yep. God, you haven't now. You're not
open a Lunar account. I get it. Even if you're Canadian and you know who I'm talking to. Even if you're Canadian, open a Lunar account. I mean, you really should have as many choices as you can, and be, open up your sources, open up your ability to get the product for your stores, but make good choices for your stores. Right? It's not your responsibility to support these publishers. It's your responsibility to keep your store profitable and healthy. So the publishers can use that as a way to reach those customers. As a publisher, I will say 100% right now, if you are so small, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, but if you are small enough that you're struggling to find distribution into comic shops, use this as an opportunity. Focus on direct to consumer. Right? If you build an audience that you can then leverage to go into the stores, you're going to be much stronger than if you refuse to sell direct to consumers so that you are supporting the comic shops. That's a cop out, right? Your job is to create demand for your product. Your job is to get out there and promote and advertise your product. And so I will say, do your part of the job, which is to promote to those fans. And then we can talk about getting you distribution. Because if you have a really strong distribution channel, channel, if you have a really strong customer audience base, you're not going to have any trouble finding distribution. So use the choices, the tools that you have to do that. And communicate, as Jeremy points out here, communicate directly with the retailers. Do that, like let them know that you are available to ship direct to them. There are several different people out there who are trying to aggregate orders to just ship direct from retailers. I know ICV2 has one, and I've talked to a couple others. Sure, work with them, but at the end of the day, your relationship is directly with the retailer anyway. Make that connection, right? Make that networking connection. We're going to go a little bit over because I think this is really important. And I will say that like the big stores, the stores that are focused on small press, that want to have a full line for their customers, they will willingly do that work of reaching out to you directly and placing that order. But also you're going to have to work with them. You're going to have to deal with smaller SKU or counts for the shipping. You're going to have to consolidate shipping. You might even have to eat the shipping. But like do that work. Yes, Plan C distribution. That's a great one. That Facebook group. Absolutely. So that's what I would be doing right now if I were you, and it's what I'm counseling our clients to do as well. Is focus on fans, man. Build your fan base.
And if you're a distributor and you're listening to this, Christina, maybe. Press releases are your friends. When you bring on a Dynamite, that should be plastered all over everywhere as press releases, because the number of my stores who still didn't know on Friday of last week that Diamond was no longer carrying Dynamite was staggering to me. So I actually included a big banner on the main app page when you logged in that said Dynamite is no longer being distributed by Diamond effective this week. All your orders have to go through Lunar now. 100%. Like communication has to happen. Press releases are your friend. Getting that stuff out loud and as often as you can. I know that sometimes it feels like it's falling on deaf ears, but if only one person hears it, it might be worth it in a case like this.
Now, one last piece, and then I think we should probably wrap up. If you're a retailer, I think it's now more than ever is beholden to you to remain connected. So yes, join the Facebook groups. I feel like in many ways they often are more destructive than they are productive, but go through and find those publishers that you are dependent upon and sign up for their newsletters. Sign up for their announcements. Send them an email saying, I want to make sure that I'm on your announcement lists, because we all have the distribution list. When we have an announcement, we want to make sure you have it. You don't have to read it.
Yeah.
But what you can do is when the customer comes and asks you, what's the story with this thing? Then you can go to your inbox, your email inbox, and search your own personal email inbox to find it. So I'm just saying, be responsible with those connections as well. That's on you as well. So yeah, awesome. This has been great, Brian. I'm so glad we actually had a little bit of tea to spill. It's nice. It's nice to have a little insider talk about insiders. You know what I'm saying?
Hey guys, real fast. Marvin says, have you heard about Comics Pro's push for local comic shop day? And I will say, because this is something I have inside track on, stay tuned.
Okay, there you go. Stay tuned.
Right.
Awesome. Excellent. Yes, absolutely. We're looking forward to local comic shop day, and hopefully that announcement went on as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what Kate and her crew are able to pull off there. So awesome. I think that's everything. Honestly, I think we have one last reminder. Do go to pranadm.com right now and hit that newsletter. Sign me up for the newsletter button. Go to Managed Comics right now and check out Managed Comics, because if you're a comic book retailer, having the right POS system in place is a game changer. It'll take you from struggling to profitable. 100%. That one piece. And Managed Comics is definitely the one. And definitely check out the chat, because people are learning in the chat right now about a lot of different things, including the thing.
True.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's awesome.
All right.
That's going to do it for us this week.
Love it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Adam Freeman, PranaDM.com. This has been Brian Garside from ManagedComics.com, and our good buddy Kyle, the producer, jumping in. I appreciate that, my friend. And we will see you next week when it'll be me without Brian.
Oh, it's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna have to watch this one.
All right. See you guys next week.
Namaste, y'all.
Namaste.